And the way you're talking about seeing everything through like post-Christ now, it's fascinating that you describe like this idea of being somebody who is experiencing real joy, like a depth of joy that exists independent of circumstances, right, wherever you find yourself, but you're still somebody that walks with depression, that still walks with anxiety. And it's like, yeah, man, like not only can you be saved, right, not only can you have the life of Jesus that exudes in your life, but also out of who you are, but you can still have issues with brain chemistry, right? And it's just like both things can coexist in one person, and that doesn't mean that you lack faith. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, a crappy Christian or whatever, right? It's just like, no, man, like this is just the reality of the world that we live in. So was there a moment for you where there was kind of like a come to grips with that? Like, did you experience some frustration of like, hey, why isn't this gone right away? Or has it just been a pretty like stable, consistent journey knowing that like Jesus is still superior to those things and is above them, even if he chooses, you know, not to heal you immediately, you know, from those things that you're dealing with? What has that journey been like for you?
The first thing that came to mind, going back to that night where I overdosed, when I cried out to Jesus, it wasn't just this one moment that happened. Yes, God slowed my heart down, but he got me through that night.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that whole night, I literally curled up in the shower, blasted worship music, and was just sitting and worshiping in the peace of God. And this is where that comes into play. My whole body was freaking out. My whole body was just in the lowest state of depression it could have possibly been in the highest state of anxiety it could have been in. But Jesus was louder than that. And it's the peace of Christ. I'm such a man of peace now because of that night. I hold on to it. So that taught me, in the midst of anything that's coming against me in that moment, I can access that place.
Yeah.
Jesus is in me, and greater than he that's in me, than he that's in the world or anything that's trying to press me.
Yeah, so that's huge. So even in the midst of like the deafening noise that is taking too much of a substance there and walking through that, they're like, the peace can still be louder than that. It's interesting that you're describing peace almost like a volume, right? Like it's something that drowns out. Like that's not a word picture that I often associate with that term there, that peace can be so loud, right, and so big that can actually deafen and dampen other noises that are trying to compete for your attention, right? Like that's huge, man. And that's a real revelation, because especially with the reality that like where you were, in the state of where you were, being able to listen to worship music and feel connected to Christ is a beautiful example of God meeting us where we are, right? Like even in the depths of the worst parts of what we're going through, what we've done to ourselves, right? Like even the consequences of our own actions.
And I'd say in the midst of all those problems, it's what's made me see how good the Lord is.
So good, man. Dude.
and those victories feel like more victories because of the struggles.
Man.
So I can't answer why God hasn't necessarily taken these things away. I know he does those things. I've seen him do those things, and I've seen cases where it doesn't happen.
But in your case, there's something, at least for me, like I'm not glad that you have to walk through depression and anxiety, but the example with which you're faithfully living that out so sincerely and transparently, it's like in some instances I'm glad that you're walking through it this way, because it gives us an example to look at, right? Like it gives us an example of saying like, man, I'm standing right here before you, like transformation is the story of my life. I don't know what to tell you. You know, just like, it was like this, Jesus made it like this, and now I'm walking it out.
And the fruit of all that really does come out in my music. You can really, what I love about my own music is that I feel like I'm allowed to, but I do.
Yeah.
I spill it out.
Yeah.
I spill out everything I can in my heart. You can hear how much of a broken individual I am or have been. God is growing me every day.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, when I'm going into those issues, you hear a major redemptive tone of Christ. So it's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're walking through the fire.
Yeah.
But he's with us in the fire. And that's the first line of Run at the Giant of the chorus. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And it's like there's this beautiful tension there. And what comes to mind is the nuances and the complexities of the way that Christians actually go through life before we get to heaven. There's an ancient Christian writer, his name is Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. and he talks about the seasoning or the maturing loves that God compels in us. And so you have the first person who loves God because he needs something, right? And so this is the amateur, the person who says, I need God because I need salvation, I need something. This is the drowning child who needs rescue.
Yes.
There's not anything inappropriate about that, right? But it's the amateur.
Gotta graduate from that place.
And then what happens after that is you learn to love God for who God is,
Amen.
rather than loving God for another end. And the beautiful tension that we hear and why we're so inspired by your story is because you're able to understand that. That you're saying that, hey, like, listen, these are the things that I was searching and needed and wanted before I knew the ultimate end that it is Christ. And now it's not like somehow your endeavors and your passion for music has disappeared, but it's now contextualized.
Yes, absolutely.
It's now like empowered. It's now oriented towards the ultimate goal.